Well, hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening for free, I might add. Sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Well-Being for All. If you're watching this show on our social media platforms, you will notice that I am once again back at Trainwreck at 812 South Sierra Madre, and I would kind of like, I don't know who I have to talk to about this, but maybe partially myself. Maybe just make this my studio. Although, probably have to figure out some other things. But I love being here, and we're going to be here for a momentous evening because a national champion will be crowned as Houston takes on Florida in the NCAA men's national championship game. What a wild Final Four we had over the weekend. And we're going to get into it over the course of the next 3 hours. But want to let you know that if you're looking for a place to post up, I had somebody call me up today. He's like, where are you going to be at for the national championship game? I said, I'm going to be at Trainwreck, and you should be too. They have a stadium-sized television, perfect for watching tonight's game. They have a bunch of other TVs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's like 20 within, I can just turn and see about 20 TVs all at once because there are other sporting events going on tonight. But the main event of the evening, of course, is the national championship game. While you're waiting for the national championship to begin, may I ask you that or encourage you to check out Trainwreck's 2 acres worth of indoor and outdoor entertainment. Talked about the golf simulators run by City Golf. Literally any golf course you can dream up in the world, they could pull it up on the simulator, and it's pretty cool. The weather, great today, so sand volleyball, anyone? How about some outdoor games in the back here? And then as far as food and drink goes, fantastic menu. I had the prime rib sandwich last time. It was amazing. My producer, Ray, had the quesadilla, raves about it. To a couple of specials to let you know about before we get going here. $4 Michelob Ultra drafts, $4 Goose Island drafts, $4 Fireball shots, and for the eating, $11 Mac Bowls. Just a small taste of what Trainwreck has going on tonight for the national championship game. Of course, I have a veritable cornucopia of sports topics to talk to you about, and I would love to get your thoughts on this Monday at 719-247-1313. Let's start with basketball, but of the professional variety, although I use that term loosely given the team that resides at Ball Arena these days. Remember the feeling that you had as a Nuggets fan after Game 81 of last season? If you recall, the Nuggets had the top overall seed in their grasp. All they had to do was beat the lowly Spurs. And they did not. And that feeling that you had of everything that the team had worked for to attain all season, getting fumbled right at the finish line, that feeling of how could this be happening, will take that feeling, if you can remember it, and extend it over the course of 7 days. And that has been your life as a Denver Nuggets fan. What is going on right now is remarkable in the worst way possible. Since Michael Malone pointed out correctly, people kind of chuckled at the idea. I saw people on altitude just like 3 days ago going like, hold on, playing, come on. Michael Malone was dead on when he brought it up at the end of March. If you recall, it was after they lost to the Bulls. And he said he told his team if they don't start winning, they're going to find themselves in the play-in. And people laughed it off. People shrugged it off. Even the ones that were a little concerned. about the Denver Nuggets said, yeah, I don't think that that's going to be a realistic possibility. Since Michael Malone stated that, the Denver Nuggets are 2-4. And they have now lost 4 in a row, their first 4-game losing streak in more than 2 seasons. You have to go back to March of 2023 to find the last time that the Denver Nuggets had lost 4 games in a row. And they did that after losing to the Indiana Pacers by a final of 125-120, a team, by the way, they had won 6 straight games against. And if you recall, this, of course, coming on the heels of their first loss to Golden State in 10 games, which wasn't that long after they lost to the Lakers in back-to-back matchups, something they had not done against their bitter rivals since the year 2022. And that has to be remembered when we're talking about this. It's not just the Nuggets slowly slipping down the standings. It's the games that they are losing. The games that they have for 3-4 years have been able to bank on. We'll beat the Lakers, we'll beat the Pacers, we'll beat the Warriors. No, they're not beating any of those teams right now. In addition to, by the way, them extending their losing streak against the Wolves and losing to the San Antonio Spurs, who do not have Victor Wembanyama and do not have Cooper Flagg yet. So it's not just that they're losing. It's who they're losing to. It's how they're losing. It's all bad. And that's adding to the feeling of impending doom surrounding this team. But I am nothing if not an optimist. When things look their bleakest for any sports team, you always look to the veterans. The veterans who have been there and done that and can say, young man, I have been through this. This too shall pass. We'll figure it out. There is nothing going on that can't be fixed. Trust me, I have been in this league for more than a decade. You can listen to my sage wisdom and know that it is truth, gospel. Here is one of those veterans, Russell Westbrook, after the Nuggets lost last night. Well, there you go. The most veteran member of this Nuggets team, who has been to countless playoffs, has been to NBA finals, has been brought in to lead the young. That's the thing. Russell Westbrook's main role is leading the very young second unit of the Denver Nuggets. And when asked what is wrong, how can we fix it, he has zero answers. Now, is that, and I'm having a hard time here because is that because he literally doesn't know, or is it because he's trying to be cute? You know, Russell Westbrook only spoke to the media last night because he was forced to under league rules. Because if you remember, when the media came to find him after he missed the layup against Minnesota, he escaped out the back door. And then a night later, when he did a similar thing against the Spurs, he did another similar thing, escaping through the back door, so the media couldn't ask him any questions. So by rule, he had to speak to the media, and that is the absolute garbage that he gives you as the most senior member of this basketball team, as the most grizzled veteran they have. So I don't know if he literally doesn't know or he's trying to be cute. Either way, it's bad. That's a bad sign. And I think he's trying to be cute, and it's real cute. You know, Russell Westbrook, and I talked about this last week, Russell Westbrook is going to burn the Nuggets bridge faster than he has burned any bridge. And for Russell Westbrook, that is saying something. This dude is absolutely ridiculous. This team looks to him for leadership. This guy has been around for a long time, and this is the crap that he feeds you because what? He doesn't want to speak to the media? Nobody even asked him about Minnesota and San Antonio. Guess what, Russ? We're already over that. We're on to this new problem. No one even asked him about the fact that he blew the Minnesota Timberwolves game and that he did it the very next night against San Antonio. Nobody even asked that. So if that's what he was trying to avoid, guess what? You succeeded. We've moved on. He was being asked real serious questions about what the Nuggets can do, and this dude just shrugs his shoulders and says, oh, no. That I don't know what will happen with the rest of this season. Just as an aside, I don't want to get too sidetracked. Russell Westbrook is gone. He should be gone from this basketball team. And I don't know who's going to pick him up after this, and I don't really care. But he doesn't need to be on the Denver Nuggets after this year. It is unbelievable how he has comported himself over the last week. When this team around him is falling apart, he is avoiding the media altogether and giving non-answers when he knows dang well how to answer those questions. Some leader this guy is. You see now what Lakers fans are talking about? I didn't want to believe it either. I just thought Lakers fans piled on anybody that's not LeBron for any reason. Nope. They have an argument, and we're seeing it over the last week. Russell Westbrook is a microcosm of the chaos that is with this basketball team right now. So that didn't help at all. Perhaps Michael Malone, the head coach of the team, could put his finger on what is going wrong with the Denver Nuggets right now. There it is. A much more satisfying answer than any Russell Westbrook gave. No Jamal Murray. Last 5 games. I think that is a fairly legitimate reason. Here's the problem. Isn't that the whole thing with Jamal Murray? Isn't that what the Jamal Murray experience has been like in Denver? When he is healthy and he is right, my God, good luck stopping him. And good luck stopping that 2-man game between Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. But do we see that guy all the time? No. The inconsistency, not just in play, more so in availability, has been the story of Jamal Murray with the Denver Nuggets. We are going on 5 years now where we've had 1 year where Jamal Murray come playoff time is right and ready. He wasn't healthy last year. He didn't make it back from his ACL tear a year before they won the title. He obviously missed the entire season before that. When you talk about the deficiencies in the problems with the Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray's inability, which he was challenged on this offseason, if you recall, his inability to be available for the Denver Nuggets is right there with the bench, with the perimeter defense, with the lack of three-point shooting. When you list the problems right now with the Denver Nuggets, put Jamal Murray's inability to stay healthy right at the top of that list. And look, I understand that health is health, and sometimes freak things happen, but it's a pattern with Jamal Murray. And the Nuggets gave him the extension anyway. And now here we are right at the finish line, Nuggets needing to win these games, and Jamal Murray's in street clothes on the bench. And if he doesn't make any of the remaining games this regular season, he will have, and I'm just throwing this out as a benchmark figure, the minimum that is required to be eligible for postseason awards, 65 games, right? This would be the second year in the last 5 that he's made that threshold, and it's right at 65. The guy has not played more than 65 games in a season the last 5 years, as Nikola Jokic has ascended to being the best player in the world and won multiple MVPs. That is a problem. And here they are again saying, Jamal Murray, help us. You're our only hope. And Jamal Murray is not available. And before the game, Michael Malone cast more doubt on this team's playoff run by saying that now Jamal Murray's injury, which I thought was day-to-day, is now not day-to-day anymore. And it's kind of a weird thing. And he could only label his optimism for Jamal Murray being available when the playoffs begin as hopeful. This team is falling apart. And if Jamal Murray is not ready to go by the beginning of the playoffs, they could be very well in the play-in, exactly where Michael Malone said they could be. In fact, they're a half a game from being the 8th seed. They wouldn't even host the first playing game. They would have to go somewhere else, and then if they lost that, they would be playing for their lives, their season. I don't know where you're at on this spectrum. I'll take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. But right now, I would say this team is closer to missing the playoffs entirely than they are to winning a title. They have slipped that far in a short amount of time because everything that I and you have pointed out from the offseason on, all of their issues have all hit them at once. They've existed all year. They haven't fixed the defense. They haven't gotten better at three-point shooting. Jamal Murray hasn't put together a fully healthy season. The bench hasn't improved that much. All of these things that we pointed out in the offseason would be issues for the Denver Nuggets have all happened throughout the season, and now they're all hitting them at once at the worst possible time. So the play-in is a real possibility. Perhaps people won't snicker when Michael Malone says that now. The Denver Nuggets are realistically in a position where they may have a game in the next couple of weeks that if they win, they get to the playoffs. If they lose, their season is over. You know the last time the Denver Nuggets were in that kind of a position? Game 82 against the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2018. You remember this game, yeah? That is also coincidentally the last time the Denver Nuggets truly evaluated their head coaching position. Perhaps this situation would be another occasion to call into question everybody leading the Denver Nuggets organization, player, coach, and general manager. Talk about that more in a little bit. For now, your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Alexander Ovechkin gets $8.95. What that makes him and what that doesn't make him. You're listening to Drive Time Sports live from Trainwreck on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports, live from Trainwreck, the place that you want to be to watch the national championship game tonight. If you stop by, we have a bunch of goodies, some Air Force gear. You can enter. This is the last night where you can enter to win Switchbacks season tickets every home game from here on out. We will draw that winner before we are done at 6 o'clock. Here tonight. So if you haven't entered yet, make sure you come in to Trainwreck at some point while I am out here. The sooner the better. Obviously, you can plenty to do to fill up the rest of your afternoon and early evening before the game tips off just before 7 o'clock. Trainwreck 812 South Sierra Madre. I'll tell you this much. If I have to sit through a New York Islanders game, I better see some history. Like sometimes I am prone to hyperbole. It is not hyperbole to say that the New York Islanders are the worst watch in the entire National Hockey League. They are, and this is not an anti-Patrick Waugh thing. They have been this way for years. They are the least aesthetically pleasing hockey team I've ever seen. And it really is amazing that Brock Nelson has been so well received because he's kind of been the face of that team and in the face of what they do. I think what it is you want a little bit of what the Islanders do, but you don't want that to be your entire identity. So the Avs could use a little bit of what the New York Islanders are. So they bring in their best player in Brock Nelson. The problem is now you have a team that still plays the same way, but is less talented than they were about a month ago. The Islanders are a horrific hockey team to watch. So if I'm going to watch on a Sunday, I better see some history. And thankfully, Alexander Ovechkin obliged. Hit it, DJ. WJFK on the call. That might be top 5 call letters. I'm being a little bit of a radio nerd, but WJFK in Washington, D.C., that's pretty good. Anyway, WJFK on the call. Alexander Ovechkin breaking Wayne Gretzky's record in the most perfect way possible. Right? The most perfect way possible. On the power play, sets up on the left circle that OV office that we all know very well and just unleashes hell on the opposing goaltender. Just rips it past Ilya Sorokin. A goal scorer's goal, and from the exact location that Alexander Ovechkin has scored numerous goals of his .895 from that spot. So it was perfect. And the celebration, perfect. The same like slide, swan dive, whatever you want to call it, that he did in the fountain at the Georgetown waterfront after the Caps won the Stanley Cup. And that's one thing that it sticks out to me about Alexander Ovechkin and this whole chase to get to Wayne Gretzky's .895. Can you imagine for a second the weight that he is feeling on his shoulders? This is one of the most supposedly unbreakable records, certainly in all of hockey and maybe all of sports. This is a massive record that he is going after. And every moment, he did it with a grin on his face, a big, fat, toothless grin on his face. Never seemed like once. I've followed, especially the home run chases. Like, even going back to, 1961 and some of the tales of what Roger Maris was going through. But even like Barry Bonds, you could feel the pressure he was under, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, all of these record chasers feel an immense amount of pressure, and it comes off that way, right? Alexander Ovechkin, you wouldn't even know it. He's just out there playing the game that he's loved since he's a kid. And that's what's so awesome about him breaking this record, as opposed to certainly some people who have broken records in other sports in recent memory, right? He's just so dang likable. How could you be upset that this record has fallen when Alexander Ovechkin is doing it like this? He's like a big kid, and he's breaking a record held by the greatest player to ever put on skates. And by the way, he has done it in the midst, and that's what the symmetry of this is, what's so perfect. He gets .895 in the same amount of games that Wayne Gretzky scored his last goal in, right? So we don't have to sit here and talk about, well, Ovi played X number of more games. He held on, like we've seen some record breakers hang on for an extra year or two just to see this record out. Alexander Ovechkin didn't do that. The dude is putting up his 14th 40-goal season this year. He is on his game in a season, mind you, that he broke his leg. The thought, no way he's going to catch Gretzky this year. He broke his leg, and yet here he is in the midst of his 14th 40-plus goal season. This guy didn't hang around limping to the finish just to see this record be broken. This dude broke it in the middle of a season where he is leading the Capitals to the best record in the East. They might win the President's Trophy by the time this season is over. Everything going on. This is as legit as breaking records come. And that's what I love about it. We don't have to diminish what Alexander Ovechkin has done, because he's not doing it on his last legs in a season where, he's played, less than 100% in terms of how much he gives to the game. Like, he's looked great this year. So what Alexander Ovechkin is, without equivocation, is the greatest goal scorer in the history of hockey. And I can't imagine there is an argument for anybody else. He did it in the same number of games as Wayne Gretzky. He did it in the midst of, I know that 65-goal year, his third year where he won his first Hart Trophy, will be held as the best season he has ever had. But how could you not put this right up there with everything that he has been through, everything that the Capitals are doing? This is one of Alexander Ovechkin's finest seasons that he breaks the all-time record in. He is not any less than the greatest goal scorer in the history of hockey. But he is also no more than that. And what's also great about this discussion is we don't need to have the big discussion. You know what the big discussion is. We don't need to say, is Alexander Ovechkin better than Wayne Gretzky? Because that's a simple no. No, he's not better than Wayne Gretzky. Sorry, not the GOAT. In fact, his place in the game, I think, is very easy to figure out. Is he Wayne Gretzky? Absolutely not. Is he on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest players to ever play in the NHL? No, I don't think so. I think it's a fairly easy answer to say that he's not even better than Sidney Crosby if we're looking at the greatest player of his generation. I really don't. Sidney Crosby has more points than Alexander Ovechkin in 200 fewer games. And if you want to bring up the fact that Alexander Ovechkin has one more Hart Trophy than Sidney Crosby, go right ahead. I'll scoreboard the Stanley Cups. 3 cups for Sidney Crosby, 1 for Alexander Ovechkin. And I love Ovi. That's where my oldest son has got his name from, was Alexander Ovechkin. I am not anti-Alexander Ovechkin. I don't think he's even the greatest player of his generation. And I think that's fine because I don't think he wants anything more. Alexander Ovechkin doesn't strike me as a big legacy guy. He's not a LeBron that is going to campaign to be put on a certain pedestal. Alexander Ovechkin just wants to play hockey and just wants to slap pucks into the back of the net. That's all this guy lives for. And he is better than anyone to ever do it. But we don't have to make this the bigger conversation. We don't have to say just because he broke this record, now he has to be top whatever. I would say he's probably a top 10 player of all time. But we don't need to agonize over all these little things. To me, it's a gut thing. Is he better than Wayne Gretzky? No. Is he better than Sidney Crosby? No. Is he better than Gordie Howe? No. Bobby Orr? No, probably not. And you go down the list and you get him somewhere in the top 10. And I think it's fine. I don't think I'm diminishing his legacy at all. And the last dude that would care about his legacy is Alexander Ovechkin. It's great because we always have to go the bigger argument. We always have to go the bigger conversation. I don't think we need to here. Recognize him for what he is and appreciate him for what he is and appreciate what he's doing this year. Leading the Caps to the top seed in the East, coming back after the broken leg, breaking Wayne Gretzky's record, another 40-plus goal season. Like, it's remarkable. It almost diminishes it when you have to, pull in, well, is he better than this guy? We don't need to do that. He's remarkable. He is a remarkable player. And the fact that, I'll put it this way, the fact that we have seen Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin their entire careers, it just makes it all the more special. I didn't see all of Wayne Gretzky's career. I didn't see any of Gordie Howe's career, although maybe with as long as he played, maybe his career and my life intersected. But like a lot of these guys, or Howe, Gretzky, I saw a good chunk of. I didn't see all of it. I have seen from the minute Alexander Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby entered the league. And it's been an absolute joy to watch both of them. It's great. And great job yesterday by the Islanders. Had to be a little awkward, right? Stopping the game and everything like that. But it's just really cool. And Wayne Gretzky was an absolute class act about the whole thing. My goodness. Credit to Wayne Gretzky. That dude was rooting for Ovi the whole time. And I thought the ceremony where he said, Gordie Howe's wife gave his wife a present and he wanted his wife to do the same. Just class act all the way. That's hockey. That's hockey culture. Just like guys being happy for one another, appreciating greatness, even if it comes at the expense of their greatness in some way. Although I don't think, maybe it's a little bit easier for Wayne Gretzky because like the dude has like 18 other records and is recognized as the great one. So I think Wayne Gretzky's pretty comfortable in his place in hockey history. So he could just be happy for Alexander Ovechkin and happy for hockey. I mean, what a great thing for the NHL to have one of its most celebrated records fall. Take your thoughts. 719-24-7. 1313. Drive Time Sports continuing on from Trainwreck. Get out here. Get your seat for the national championship game. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Drive Time Sports live from Trainwreck. National Championship game tonight between Houston and Florida. I have thoughts that I'd like to share with you a little bit later. In the meantime, come on out. City Golf, grand opening. The golf simulators here at Trainwreck, they're running a grand opening special, $200 for 1 month. Includes an hour a day every day on the golf simulators here. There are Mark, who is the owner of City Golf, doing a bunch of really cool stuff: league play, lessons, group clinics, theme nights, and hey, there simulators. I saw somebody go back there, but doing the math, there's other simulators available. So definitely come by, check that out amongst all the other things that you could do at Trainwreck as you're waiting for the national championship game to begin tonight. Let's get to your thoughts at 719 24/7 1313. I'm trying to, as I'm speaking, figure out the answer to Brett's question. But first, we'll go to the 719. Comparing Gretz and Ovi is like apples to oranges. Gretzky scored most of his goals with the Oilers. In fact, he only had 2 30-goal seasons in his last 8 seasons. His game was much different. But that doesn't stop us, right? I mean, somebody has to be the greatest hockey player of all time, and we have to compare different skill sets. I mean, you're right that Wayne Gretzky played in a much different way, and I'm certainly not comparing their styles to one another. So you make a good point, but we do this all the time. Any record gets broken, we inevitably say, okay, is he a Mount Rushmore guy? Is he top 10? Is he top 5? Is he the greatest of all time? And I don't think that in any way, shape, or form he touches Wayne Gretzky. You know, we did that last summer. We did our GOAT of GOATs, and Wayne Gretzky, to me, is one of the most obvious GOATs. Like, there were some others, there's more of an argument between LeBron and Michael than there is Wayne Gretzky and anybody else who's ever played. I mean, he's one of those GOAT of GOATs. So we don't have to have that big conversation. He's not Wayne Gretzky. He's not that way as a player, to your point, and I don't think that his greatness is on the level of Wayne Gretzky, but I don't want to diminish what we have seen from Alexander Ovechkin. Brett asks, who scored more empty net goals? Ready for this? Ovechkin scored 65 empty net goals in his career. Wayne Gretzky scored 56. Now, I will ask, and I'm not saying that you are going this direction, Brett, but are you trying to throw an asterisk on there? It's 9 empty net goals difference. Because then you're just opening up a can of worms. Because somebody else brought this up over the weekend. Somebody was talking about how little defense was played in the 80s. Right? And how much easier Wayne Gretzky's job was than Alexander Ovechkin's because of the better athletes, the style of play, the rules, all this kind of stuff. And I listened to that and I cringed. Now, it's a negligible difference. 65 empty net goals. Wayne Gretzky had 56. If you'd like to use it to further underscore Wayne Gretzky's greatness, then be my guest. But it certainly is not diminishing what Alexander Ovechkin. That's what he's paid to do. 5-on-5, 5-on-4, empty net, regardless of the situation. Alexander Ovechkin, his job was to score goals, and he did it better than anybody. and it's great. Continue to take your thoughts on Ovi. And DJ pointing out, DJ's producing today back at the Extra Sports 1300 studios, points out just not just the fact that Ovi broke his leg and still did all of this, but he came back after only a little bit. So the guy didn't actually miss that many games due to a broken leg, but he came back from the broken leg, was still effective. His 14th 40-plus goal season broke the record. Caps might win the President's Trophy. It's awesome. All of it is great. And we don't need to, I'll say top 10. You want to open it up for a conversation. Alexander Ovechkin is a top 10 player, not top 5, not top 1. He's a top 10. Try that on for size. 719-247-1313. One thing I want to get to before the top of the hour here, and we'll get back into the Denver Nuggets conversation. It was actually here at Trainwreck last time we were out here. I was talking about Dick Monfort whining about the competitive imbalance in Major League Baseball. And I think before he can really gripe about it, I think the Rockies need to do something that is within the power of every major league team to do, regardless of their payroll. Yes, some teams invest more in this type of player, certainly, but there's not one team, including the Colorado Rockies, that have never developed a prospect. So before we get to whining about what the Dodgers are doing, let's first do the thing that is fully within the power of the Colorado Rockies right here and now, and that's developing top 10 draft picks. They have been drafting in the top 10 for this entire decade so far. 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. They have picked in the top 10 every single year. Let's start getting some of these guys to the major leagues. If they get poached by the Dodgers with $900 million deferred, then we can have this conversation. But let's get some of these guys to the major leagues and see if they're worth anything. Because the Rockies, I get it. They can't buy all of their free agents. They can't even hit with 100% accuracy on their prospects. They can hit a few of them. And yesterday they brought up Chase Dollander. He was their pick a couple of years ago out of Tennessee. Made his major league debut yesterday. And I'll say, I think he passed with flying colors because Coors Field is an untamable beast. And it's a matter of when, not if, Coors Field gets to you as a pitcher, because it's gotten to everyone who has played any amount of time at Coors Field. It will always get to you. But what I want to see from Rockies pitchers is, can you understand that and fight through? And there was a moment yesterday that I was very impressed with Chase Dollander. He gets touched up for a home run. Top of the first inning, right? His first major league debut, his family and his girlfriend are there, and he gets touched up, third batter of the game for a home run. How many pitchers would give up 3 or 4 more runs that inning? And Dollander buckled down, came back, struck out a guy that hasn't struck out in nearly 60 at-bats, got out of the inning. His line wasn't spectacular. 5 innings, 4 runs on 7 hits. But everything I've heard about Chase Dollander is he's got that bulldog mentality. And that's what the Rockies need. Yeah, they need stuff. But guys in the top 10 will have stuff. Right? They'll have elite fastballs. They'll have great breaking stuff. If you're drafting in the top 10, the pitcher that you get is going to have the arsenal to be able to succeed, but does he have the mentality? That's why Kyle Freeland has stuck around, because he knows he's not going to dominate teams. He's going to get touched up. He's going to have outings where he gets touched up for 5 or 6 runs, and he's going to get chased in the 4th inning. But he's going to be right back out there the next inning if they let him, or the next start, and he's going to go just as hard right back at his opponent. That's what the Rockies need, and that's what they've had in very short supply over their history. So it's early, but I thought pretty good major league debut. You know, we always look to Jason Jennings as the most memorable rookie debut for a Rocky. That was at Shea. Okay? He didn't have to throw at Coors Field. So I thought a good day, and we know these are going to be few and far between for the Colorado Rockies. It was a good day yesterday as they win, and Chase Dollander made his major league debut and kind of showed some of the things that you need to succeed at Coors Field for as long as you can until Coors Field eventually breaks you down. There's more Rockies news that I'll get to a little bit later. Coming up next, more on the Nuggets in the midst of their collapse. How much blame should Michael Malone shoulder? That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in, Drive Time Sports, live from Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre. If you're looking for a place to watch the national championship game tonight, this is it. 2 acres of indoor and outdoor entertainment, great food and drink, and a stadium-sized TV for you to watch Houston and Florida on coming up tonight. Couple of the specials they're throwing at you tonight for the occasion. $4 Michelob Ultra drafts, $4 Goose Island drafts, $4 Fireball shots, and $11 Mac Bowl. So come on by, get your seat. Lots to do. Sand volleyball, some backyard games, the golf simulators run by City Golf. Trust me, it's not just coming in, sitting down, and watching TV and eating. There's a lot going on here at Trainwreck. I'll be here till 6. You could come in and enter to win Switchback season tickets and pick up some other goodies that we have on our prize table here at Trainwreck. 719-247-1313 is the text line if you would like to get involved. We'll pick back up with the Alexander Ovechkin discussion. Where is he in the pantheon of NHL greats? I think it's pretty easy where to put him. See if you agree. We'll get back into that conversation. But the big news of the day is that the Denver Nuggets are absolutely falling apart. They have lost 4 in a row. They are half a game out of the play-in. No matter how down on the Denver Nuggets you may have been coming into the season or at any point during the year, be honest, you never thought that they would be in the play-in. That's how bad things are right now with this basketball team, is that it is legitimately possible, somewhere between legitimately possible and likely, that they end up in the play-in. And if this season continues down this road, I'm telling you, no one outside of Nikola Jokic is safe. No one. And no one should be safe outside of Nikola Jokic, who, by the way, had a 41-point triple-double last night. And I know it sounds like, I criticize everybody but Jokic. Look at what he does on a nightly basis. Look at what he does. He is really above criticism. But everybody else, they're in that group, including Michael Malone. And people have told me that I am putting too much blame on Michael Malone and not enough on Calvin Booth. Let's ask Michael Malone about how much blame he should shoulder. And I'll give credit to Michael Malone. He is always one to point the thumb and not the finger. Here's the thing. He's right. He's right. How much does Michael Malone have to own what is going on with this team? He talks about the defense. Is a coach not responsible at all for the level of defense his team plays? I'm not saying put him in front of Calvin Booth. I'm just saying the days of him being this Teflon Don are over. This team could find itself in the same spot they were in 2018 when they lost Game 82 to the Wolves and missed the playoffs entirely. And the discussion all offseason was whether Michael Malone is the right guy moving forward with this Denver Nuggets team. I would say it's fair to ask that question if the Denver Nuggets end up in a similar situation, don't you? I get it. Calvin Booth is first, and the luckiest thing for Michael Malone is that Calvin Booth is on an expiring contract. Okay, so the Denver Nuggets, when this thing ends poorly, they can stand up there and say and throw it all on Calvin Booth, right? We said we would do everything we could to make sure Nikola Jokic wins as much as possible. Calvin Booth didn't do that. The disconnect between he and Michael Malone about how they go about doing that. Well, that's on Calvin Booth. We fired him. So now we're going to bring in a general manager that will be in lockstep with Michael Malone. But are we sure we want to, in a season like this, give Michael Malone more power in the organization than he already has? From everything you've seen, is the right path to just implicitly trust Michael Malone and let him pick the GM that he works with? I don't. Because I'll tell you this, if you are someone who is souring on Jamal Murray and saying, I love the guy and I love playoff Jamal, but the Nuggets need him to be healthy, guess who has vouched for Jamal Murray year after year? Who did he go to getting emotional when he tore his ACL and said, are you guys going to cut me? That was Michael Malone. And from that day forward, there has been no bigger proponent of Jamal Murray in the Denver Nuggets organization than Michael Malone. I'm telling you that for a fact. If Calvin Booth had complete autonomy, I don't know that Jamal Murray would still be on this Denver Nuggets team. So when you collapse the way that the Nuggets are starting to collapse, you have to look at everyone. Not just Michael Porter. You have to look at Jamal Murray. Not just Calvin Booth. You have to look at Michael Malone. I don't think anybody is safe in all of this. The only reason that Michael Malone, to me, I can't really, as much as I keep saying, are you sure Michael Malone's not going to shoulder some of the blame here? Are we sure Michael Malone is going to keep his job after all of this? Is only the frugalness of the Kroenke family. That's all I can point to. If this happened, if what is happening happened under any other owner, Michael Malone would absolutely be on a hot seat, and he might be fired. The Memphis Grizzlies just fired Taylor Jenkins with 2 weeks left in the season. The idea that they would have to pay Michael Malone the rest of his contract, pay another coach, I don't know if the Kroenkes are willing to do that. So they have an easy fall guy in Calvin Booth. Expiring contract, we let him go. We want our organization to be more in lockstep, a shared vision. Calvin Booth trusted these young guys that we don't really like. Michael Malone's fingerprints are all over this thing too. I'm not saying he deserves more blame than Calvin Booth, but he deserves some of it. The stink of this sticks to everybody except Nikola Jokic. And while I would be completely on board with the idea, like this thing keeps going this way, let's say they even don't finish in the play-in. Okay, and let's just say they get bounced by Minnesota in the second round. Or anybody, because really, after the last couple of weeks, they don't own the Lakers anymore. They don't own the Warriors anymore. So do we have to open up the list a little bit of teams that we could see beating the Denver Nuggets in a 7-game series? I think right now we have to. So let's just say the Nuggets fall short of the NBA Finals. And I said this last week. Like, it's getting to the point where you better get to the finals, or else there's going to be significant change with this organization. Is there any credit to be given that the Denver Nuggets figured out a way to avoid the play-in and win the first round? Is that all of a sudden what the Nuggets are in the business of? So if Calvin Booth gets let go for a variety of reasons, the mistakes that he made, the fact that they're going to need at least one scapegoat, okay, let's play out this scenario. Don't you think that, do you think simply trading Michael Porter Jr. will fix it? Do you think that everything you're seeing right now, you think that's the fix? Fire Booth, trade Michael Porter. Because I'm going to tell you, that contract is not attractive to other NBA teams. Now, I think a trade with Phoenix for Kevin Durant is possible. I don't think it's a sure thing. But I think for a lot of reasons it makes sense. If you fire or let Calvin Booth's contract go and you trade Michael Porter and some other pieces and add Kevin Durant, okay. What about the defense? Like, I don't think that I think that's the big move, but I don't think that the Nuggets cure all of their ills by doing this. There are just so many things that are popping up right now, all at the same time, where you go, man, I don't know if simply trading Michael Porter is enough. I don't know that simply letting Calvin Booth go is enough. Because the next guy that comes in, the really hard decision is really not trading Michael Porter. I think there are even the most ardent Michael Porter supporters, to which I have been accused of being. If they traded him, it would make sense. I'd have to see what the return is, but I get it. I understand it. If this team wants to make a real change, they're going to have to trade Porter and Murray. They're going to have to completely remake this team around Nikola Jokic. And is the new GM going to have the leeway to be able to do that? Because with Michael Malone still as the head coach, I think he's going to fight whatever GM comes in tooth and nail to keep Jamal Murray. He loves Jamal Murray. And he has made Jamal Murray such a big part of this team that you saw it last night. What happened at the end of that basketball game without Jamal Murray? They were completely lost. Nikola Jokic was trying to play that two-man game, trying to do the dribble handoff, and Christian Brown goes like underneath instead of over, and like he has to throw it out. Russell Westbrook's not paying attention. It was a bad pass, but like Nikola Jokic, the entire team is lost without that two-man game late in games. That's how important of a player they have made Jamal Murray. And yet here he is at the end of another season, not available to this team when they need him the most. I don't think that this team, if they keep going down this direction, I don't think there is one or two moves. I think we are talking about a complete overhaul of this team around Nikola Jokic, and I would hope that Aaron Gordon survives that. Outside of that, everything is on the table. That's what should happen. What I think is going to happen, they'll put everything on Calvin Booth. They'll let his contract expire. They'll bring in a new GM that has the same vision as Michael Malone, and maybe they trade Michael Porter Jr. for lesser talented players that play defense. Is that going to be enough? Because I've said throughout the season, making sure Jamal Murray is healthy and right, and that player is the most important thing. And here we are with 3 games left in the season, and he's not. And that's your second best player. That's a foundational player that you are without. Oh, but next year he'll be healthy. Okay. 1 year out of the last 5, he's been healthy for the playoffs. 719-247-1313. If this season continues down this path and the Nuggets find themselves with an early exit, whether that be the play-in or the first round, or even the second round for that matter, who's gone besides Calvin Booth? Because that's, at this point, that's the given. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports live from Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre. Come by, get your seat for the national championship game. May I suggest right in front of their stadium-sized TV. Best seat in the house, but you can't go wrong here at Trainwreck. More after this. What do the Nuggets do if this collapse continues? A half a game out of the play-in with 3 games to go, and the schedule is not super favorable. 2 road games, the 1 home game. No, I'm mixing that up. So they play at Sacramento on Wednesday. They play home against Memphis, and they go to Houston. The team with less to play for out of that group is Houston, but they're the 2nd seed in the West. So we'll see what Ime Udoka throws out there that final day of the season. But you are facing 2 teams coming up here that are just as motivated as you are. Sacramento is playing for their season. They could miss even the play-in. They don't want it. They want to try and move up the standings. Memphis is trying to avoid being in the play-in. They just fired their coach. So it's not like the Nuggets are going to be able to rely on their weak schedule down the stretch. And you look back, and I get it. It's in retrospect and hindsight, being 2020 and all that. But gosh, how much does that Spurs loss stick out to you? Like Golden State, it's like they're really good. And you could understand at some point that Golden State was going to snap their losing streak to the Denver Nuggets. But you rest everybody the night after you lose to Minnesota. I'm not saying in the moment it was the wrong call, but if you can't figure out a way to win one of the next couple of games you have after that, because you do that with the idea that, well, we have a good chance to win against San Antonio, which they did, and we can win that game anyway, or worst case scenario, we do end up losing, but we'll be able to figure out a way to win the next 2. The San Antonio loss is bad. I saw Mark Kisler write about that. I think in the moment, we all were like, they all deserve a night off except Russell Westbrook. So I'm not saying here saying that the Nuggets, I was saying that the Nuggets should play everybody against San Antonio. But you don't find a way to win that game. And you don't find a way to win after you lose to San Antonio and Golden State. You don't find a way to win last night either. If you're going to lose to San Antonio, you better make it up in one of these next couple of games. And that's what I'm saying about Michael Malone here. We can get into who you're going to get that's better than him. Okay? Yes, that's going to be the conversation. But everything that has plagued the Denver Nuggets, does Michael Malone have no culpability in all of that? A lot of well, let me take one of the perfect examples of one of the Nuggets' issues right now. Offensive rebounding. Rebounding. What do coaches at every level of basketball tell you? It's effort. It's effort. Is that not something that Michael Malone can coach up? Coach up effort? Motivate his team? Maybe, maybe not. Defense. Their inability to guard the perimeter. That all on the players and not on Michael Malone? How about the bench? Michael Malone has had the same problem with the non-Jokic minutes for the last 4 years. And he hasn't figured out one thing to do to make it better. Not one. Are we really putting everything on the players themselves and the guy that brought them in? And none of it on Michael Malone. I can't get there. And yeah, there's a list of guys that probably need to go first before you get to Michael Malone. But the idea that you don't look at everybody with this Nuggets team is just preposterous to me. What has Michael Malone done? Because if you say all of that is not Michael Malone's fault, then man, how good of a coach is he in the first place? He can't make up for any of the shortcomings on their roster. right? So let's take it the other way. If you want to put all of it on the supporting cast around Nikola Jokic and Calvin Booth, then man, how good of a coach is Michael Malone that he can't bridge that gap a little bit with his coaching ability? And I'm not saying that Michael Malone, look, you can do worse than Michael Malone, no doubt about it. But we've seen coaching changes because the message has run its course, because it's falling on deaf ears. Michael Malone has warned this team since March 31st that they could be in the play-in, and have they responded? They're 2-4. They're on a 4-game losing streak. Michael Malone has been a good coach for the Denver Nuggets. But just like in 2018, when the Nuggets lost Game 82 to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the conversation was Michael Malone the right guy? I'm just saying that question has to be asked again if this season continues down this path. Your thoughts? 719-247-1313. Tyler says the Spurs loss at the end of last season cost us as well. And that, and I'll reset at the top of the hour, but that's a phenomenal point, Tyler. That's why I started the show with today. That feeling that you had after Game 81 against the Spurs last year is how you've been feeling over the last week about this Nuggets team. They had everything in front of them, everything in their grasp, and they're just letting it slip through their fingers inexplicably. At least this time around, this week-long Game 81, we can at least point to some of the issues. The Spurs loss, they just flat out did not show up. Over this stretch, it's been, it's been defense, it's been the bench, it's been the lack of availability from Jamal Murray. Like, we can point out some concrete things about this stretch, whereas the Spurs, it was just one of those, like, how do you not show up for that game? But to your point again, yeah, what happened to the fact that Michael Malone burnt out Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic last year? Has that been all forgiven there? Do we not remember that was Michael Malone's doing? Something that he owned up to after the season? And he's so good about owning up to these things. And credit to him for that. But does that mean the blame isn't on him anymore? I was just having a conversation with Ray, who's out here with me producing. And the question about the young guys on this Nuggets roster. We may never know, right? We may never know about Julian Strawther and Peyton Watson and who am I missing? Help me out, Ray. Who are the other guys on that bench? Jalen Pickett. I'm not going to go so far as Hunter Tyson. We'll cut the line, cut it there. But I'm not so sure that maybe these guys could be viable options off the bench if Michael Malone would have bought in from the get-go. He didn't play Peyton Watson at all in the Minnesota series last year. The most important games of the year, Peyton Watson was not seen on the court. You don't think his development was hurt by that? You don't think the development of some of these young guys has been hurt by Michael Malone's I only want to play veterans? That mentality, him pushing for the number 1 seed, hurt the development of some of these guys. And who's to say that it's not like he's fully embraced the youth movement this year? He hasn't fully embraced it. So it's really a chicken or the egg thing. Do you really believe that Calvin Booth has swung and missed on all of these guys, or because of the inability for he and Michael Malone to see eye to eye on how to go forward and how to sustain this championship window has cost them the development of these young players? I don't have the answer. But Michael Malone, I thought we were all in agreement about what the Nuggets would do moving forward. It was these young players. And then last year, Michael Malone wouldn't play any of them. And it was, well, I'm going to this year. Has he? The only reason he'll play Jalen Pickett is if Jamal Murray's out. And now you look back here in the last 3 games of the season and say, how worth it was the whole Russell Westbrook experiment? In some ways, don't you look and say, maybe they just should have gone with Jalen Pickett? I mean, I get it. A lot of this is hindsight. But the guy that is tasked with kind of looking around these corners and having foresight is Michael Malone. To everybody. Brett says Michael Malone expected to make chicken soup out of chicken excrement. And some people feel that way. I don't. If we're cutting up the pie of blame, sure, Calvin Booth deserves a bigger chunk of it than anybody else. But you're not cutting off a slice for Michael Malone? How about the call from the Cronkies saying we are unwilling to go over the second apron, so KCP is allowed to walk? If what it comes down to is if this trend holds and the Nuggets season goes completely off the, well, let's be honest, it's off the rails. If it's ever put back on the never put back on the rails, it's a complete organizational failure from top to bottom. That's what I'm getting at. There is not one level of this team that shouldn't be looked at with a critical eye, and all good feelings from what this person did for you back in the day should be gone. Right? I think the Cronkies' frugalness got in the way of the Nuggets being the best version of themselves. I think some of the decisions from Calvin Booth kept them from being the best version of themselves. And I think that Michael Malone's decisions have kept the Denver Nuggets to some degree from being the best version of themselves. And yeah, some of it's on the players. But I go back to the question that I asked in the previous segment. Understanding the bond between Jamal Murray and Michael Malone. If they just cut ties with Calvin Booth and the new GM came in and said, I kind of think we need to move on from Jamal Murray. This guy is just not available when we need him. And that's part of it. Building around Nikola Jokic is making sure that the players are available there to aid him. You think Michael Malone's going to go, you know what? You're right. I don't. So it really comes down to who do the Cronkies want to put all the power in the hands of? Do they want to put it all into the hands of Michael Malone? Because if they let Calvin Booth go and let Michael Malone be a part of the process in hiring the new guy, I don't think Jamal Murray's getting traded. I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think they're ever going to go back to the trying to develop young talent. 709-24-7. 1313. More of your texts on this Monday next. Drive Time Sports live from Trainwreck, the place to be for the national championship game. Houston in Florida this evening. Uh, Want to let you know that we didn't have a Switchbacks home match this weekend, but when they come around, not this week but next week, just want to plant the seed that Trainwreck, your ultimate Switchbacks tailgate party headquarters. Enjoy cold drinks, great food, and game day energy with fellow fans. We're kicking off the fun before every home game this season, so don't miss out. Grab your crew, come early, and tailgate with the folks here at Trainwreck. From the 719, Nuggets are toast. Their defense last night is trash, and they have just been a terrible. And Michael Malone pointed it out last night. Like, the biggest thing to him after he brings up the injuries is they don't, like, their defense has fallen off of a cliff. And they just it's on the perimeter. I do think that they they protect the rim okay. Everyone always worries about, well, Jokic isn't a rim protector. I think the problem starts before that. If they would defend the perimeter better, they wouldn't need Nikola Jokic to be, Akeem Olajuwon in terms of his defensive ability. It wouldn't need somebody to swat the ball away at the rim. But they are just, and in adding Jamal Murray, I don't know if it helps, and as much as it needs to. I still kind of cling to the defensive rating with the starting five all together on the floor at the same time is top 5, but my goodness, it is such a small sample size that I don't know if you could put all your faith in that. And it really, at this point, it's a moot point because Jamal Murray's not even playing. So let's get all of them together. I would be fascinated to see. But I don't know if the Nuggets are going to have that when the playoffs begin. But it's their perimeter defense. We'll do this in order of operation. It's not having Jamal Murray. Either not having him, period, or not having him playing at the top of his game, because he can be, even when healthy, a little inconsistent with his production. So they haven't had Jamal Murray healthy and right for enough of the season, and they don't have him that way now. Then it's the perimeter defense. In a league that has been dominated by three-point shooting, the Nuggets cannot guard the perimeter. And it's both ways. They can't stop teams from shooting threes. And if the team decides to actually drive, they can get right around the Nuggets' perimeter defenders. So that's second. Third is the bench. And now there's a new bench issue that has popped up, which is Russell Westbrook refusing to meet with the media. And when he finally does, putting his hands in his pockets and shrugging his shoulders on how to fix it. And so the bench, the perimeter defense, the Jamal, not knowing if you're going to have Jamal or what Jamal you're going to get night in and night out, they're three biggest issues. And they've They've happened all year, and now they're hitting them all at once at the worst possible time. Get back into that at the top of the hour. Ovechkin getting $8.95. Where does that put him in NHL history? Tom says Ovechkin is a great goal scorer. I would maybe put him top 20. I feel like people feel threatened when someone passes somebody like Gretzky, but I don't think Ovechkin is anywhere close to the player Gretzky was, so no need to diminish his accomplishment. Great goal scorer. Mark it down, 4:46 on Monday, April 7th. Tom and I are in complete agreement with one another. Alexander Ovechkin is not the player Wayne Gretzky was. But guess what? Nobody is. Nobody is. That's not even a Jordan LeBron debate. There is no debate with Wayne when it comes to Wayne Gretzky. I do have him a little bit higher. I think he's top 10. Just off top, I would put Gretzky. I put Howe. I would put Orr. I would put Lemieux. I put Crosby. So there's 5. I had a whole list in my head earlier. Messier. But you notice a theme here. A lot of guys at positions that can affect the game in more ways. I know Gordie Howe was a winger, but heavy on the centers, right? They assist, they score their own goals. I think he's a top 10. We could go back. We can go back in the day. Rocket Richard. He better than Alexander Ovechkin? I'll be biased towards the present day and say that Ovechkin better than Rocket Richard. I think he's a top 10 player. And that's what I said earlier. He's not the one. He's not on the Mount Rushmore. He's not in the top 5. I think he's in the top 10. Feel pretty good about that. Don't think that diminishes him, and I don't think there's anyone that he would, if he is a top 10 player, that he would be in that top 10 at the expense of that you would be, unless you were a fan of that player or that team. I don't think there would be a player that you go, oh, this is outrageous. Alexander Ovechkin is not a top 10 player. He probably is. Probably is. Now, Tom, you're digging in, aren't you? You're going to really drive home this top 10 versus top 20. All right, I'll play along. Tom, I could find 10 players just in the Avs, Red Wings, 90s to 2000s I would take over Ovechkin. Stop. The only one would be Patrick Waugh, and that's really tricky because he's a goalie. I put Ovechkin over Forsberg. I put Ovechkin over Sakic. I would put Ovechkin over anybody that the Red Wings from those 90s teams would throw up. Yzerman, Fedorov. No, I'd take Ovi over him. But this is the very thing I said I don't want to get into because I just felt like it was so perfect that Alexander Ovechkin is recognized as the greatest goal scorer in the history of hockey because that's what he should be. And I don't think we really should get into that bigger conversation. Just acknowledge him for what he is because there's no debate that he is the greatest goal scorer of all time. More than that, I mean, to me, it's what is being the greatest goal scorer get you? And I think that's being in the top 10. That's where I would put him. Another text in from the 719. Rankings aside, Ovi breaking a record that most people, while I was growing up, said was unbreakable is impressive. 100%. And we say this all the time. We say records are made to be broken, and yet we hold up so many records as unbreakable. And maybe that should be the biggest takeaway from what we're seeing with Alexander Ovechkin. I've seen a lot of lists, and there are records that I could, bring up. DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. Wayne Gretzky's, what do you have, 218 points? I know DJ will fact check me on that. But his record for the most points in a season, or Barry Bonds' home run record now that, steroids are out of the game. Like, we could throw in all of these, and I'm telling you, they can all be broken. They can all be broken. Which is a good thing. We don't want records to hold till the end of time. Where's the fun in that? We thought, oh, no way. No way Mark McGwire's 70 home runs in a season would be broken. Yep, Bonds. I mean, there are records that are certainly going to hold, have held for a long time, and will continue to hold for a long time. DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak is the one that I immediately think of. That's one that has been held for a very long time, and I see it being held for a very long time from now on. Like, that one's going to take a while, because you just think of the way that teams build their rosters, the way they handle their pitching staffs. By sometimes by the second time, but certainly by the third time you step up to the plate as a hitter, you're seeing a different pitcher. Certainly by the third time around. But sometimes you'll see an opener, and then you'll see a brand new pitcher the second time. Like, for somebody to be able to break Joe DiMaggio's record, it's going to take, I think, the pendulum swinging back the other way in philosophy when it comes to the way teams use pitchers. But I don't put it past anybody to do that. I mean, how many shifts and swings have we seen in different sports just in our lifetime? So I'm sure that there will come a day where pitchers will once again be stretched out in games a little bit more. And, maybe there's a young player, some kid, 12-year-old kid, that's going to be this amazing phenom that is going to have it in his mind that he would rather be the next Ichiro than he'd rather be the next, Barry Bonds. And just say, I just want to be able to make contact, and I just want to get on base that way. What Ovi breaking the record should show us is that no record is unbreakable. But there are records that are going to be really freaking tough to break. And Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak is the one that keeps coming to my mind. There are others. Give me yours. Or we could go the other way and say, which record do you expect to be broken next? What supposedly unbreakable record? We can get into that as well. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports live from Trainwreck after this. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports live from Trainwreck, the place to watch tonight's national championship game between the Houston Cougars and the Florida Gators. My thoughts on tonight's game and what we saw in the Final Four coming up in just a little bit. Appreciate you tuning in, whether you're listening to the show or whether you're watching/listening on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. If you are interested in coming out to Trainwreck to watch the national championship game, just know that there's plenty to do from now until when the game tips off at 6:50. What a start time that is, 6:50 here this evening. We are entering people to win Switchbacks season tickets. And we have some other prizes to give away as well. Trainwreck is doing their part with some great drink deals like $4 Michelob Ultra Draft, $4 Fireball shots, and $11 Mac Bowls. That's a food item, not a drink item. The Mac Bowls, they're delicious mac and cheese. So great menu. Plenty of great drinks on tap, and great place to watch the game on their stadium-sized TV. Allow us to begin this hour the way we like to start this 5 o'clock hour. Here are the three stories that are driving the show. All right, let's start. Story number one. The Nuggets lose again. Here's Altitude Radio on the call. Again, Altitude Radio on the call. You heard it right here on Extra Sports 1300. What is happening right now with the Denver Nuggets is really hard to fathom. Although if you would have heeded the words of Michael Malone just a few weeks ago, you might have realized that this was a possibility, that the Denver Nuggets are now just a half a game up on the play-in. Could you imagine, have imagined, I should say, at the beginning of the year that the Denver Nuggets were a play-in team? The only way that I could have imagined that is if you would have told me Nikola Jokic was hurt for a significant amount of the season. And yet, with Nikola Jokic healthy, this is happening because every one of the Nuggets' shortcomings are happening to them every night all at once. Jamal Murray, right at the top of the list, he's out. Another stretch run where Jamal Murray is not healthy, which happens basically 4 out of every 5 years of his career. Certainly happened 4 of the last 5 years of his career. The perimeter defense, shoddy, continuing to be. The bench is not good. And now the supposed leader of your bench, Russell Westbrook, is just making plans to be not a Denver Nugget after this season because I don't know, I wish I could tell you, golly goshers, guys, I'm only here so I won't get fined. That whole act he put on in the locker room after the game, he needs to be gone. I'll tell you, we've been talking throughout the show about Michael Malone, Calvin Booth, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, who stays, who goes. Russell Westbrook, number one on the list, cannot be a Denver Nugget next year. He can't. This stuff that he's pulling is just, they don't need it. They got enough problems without dealing with Russell Westbrook's immaturity that he seems to showcase on the way out of every other stop he's been to in the NBA. But everything that has plagued the Denver Nuggets all season long is happening all at once. And it's causing the Denver Nuggets to lose 4 games in a row and be a half a game out of the play-in, with Memphis, Sacramento, and Houston, all teams that have something to play for down the stretch. Houston, the least of which, but they're the number 2 seed in the West, so give them their flowers. They're a better team right now than the Denver Nuggets. This kind of a collapse should make the Nuggets organization from top to bottom reevaluate everything. They should go into this offseason saying no one is safe except number 15. What Jamal Murray did in the playoffs 2 years ago, that was awesome. Remember what happened last year? He crapped out like the rest of the team in Game 7. You remember what happened this year? Shouldn't be hard. It's happening right now. He's not healthy, and Michael Malone's only, quote-unquote, hopeful that Jamal Murray plays. You gave Michael Porter the big extension because you believed in him. So what? 2018 was the last time that the Denver Nuggets truly evaluated their head coach. That was after they lost Game 82 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I say they need to reevaluate it if this keeps going the way it's going. Calvin Booth is going to get let go. Like, we know that. To me, the better question is who else is going out the door. And if it keeps going this direction, there's going to be a few guys following Calvin Booth out the door once this season has come to an end. Nuggets play Wednesday night. They got a couple of days to sit and think about what's happened and what they can do to fix it. Story number 2, the great next hope for the Rockies debuts. Here's story number 2. Combination of Rockies television and radio on the call. Of course, I say the Rockies' next great hope with tongue firmly planted in cheek. But this is what it looks like. This is what let me put it this way. I don't even want to start projecting what the Rockies could be in 3 years or 5 years. If you're going to complain about the imbalance when it comes to competition in Major League Baseball, in the disparity in payrolls in Major League Baseball, and I'm talking specifically to Dick Monfort, first, you got to be able to do the thing that is available to everyone, regardless of payroll, and that is developing your prospects. The Rockies, for the last 5 seasons, have drafted in the top 10. They should be able to churn out a few guys to help them at the major league level. And Chase Dollander, who pitched yesterday for the Rockies, is one of them, drafted in the top 10 just a couple of years ago. And I thought that for a debut by a Rockies pitcher is about as good as it gets. It's not the Jason Jennings debut, but Dollander did it in Coors. And he's not allowed to hit anymore. So it's a little bit apples and oranges. But I thought the one thing that Dollander showed that impressed me, yeah, he's got movement on his pitches. Yeah, he can get it up near 100 miles an hour, his fastball. But after getting taken yard in that top of the first inning, he came back and got a strikeout to get out of the inning. And to me, he showed some mental toughness. And that's what you need first and foremost if you're going to pitch at Coors Field. But the Rockies got to churn out some of these guys. And then if they get poached by the Dodgers 5 years from now, then okay, we can have that conversation. But get a few more of these prospects at the major league level. And today they actually called up another one, Zach Veen, top 10 pick from the year 2020. Comps to Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich coming out of high school. It's kind of rare that the Rockies hit on a high school prospect, but they're going to give it a try here with Zach Veen. But this is what you're supposed to do. And before we could talk about whatever disadvantage the Rockies are at and what they can and can't do, just do the thing that all bad teams are able to do. Raise players through their farm system for the Yankees and the Dodgers to poach them all. At least get there, and then we can complain that the Dodgers and the Yankees are taking all the Rockies' best players. But Dollander making his debut yesterday. Rockies win it and scored some runs. How about that? And then he and Zach, well, he'll make his second start coming up later this week. Zach Veen expected for this next series to be in the lineup at some point. Some more prospects on the way for the Rockies. Just try that. Try that and see what happens. And then we'll discuss further along the line. And story number 3 today, Gabriel Landeskog maybe playing in Loveland, maybe not. Jared Bednar a little bit coy with the media today. When Gabriel Landeskog was sent to Loveland, a lot of people said, well, he's going to make a rehab start, isn't he? People started buying up their Eagles tickets. Well, not so fast. Jared Bednar non-committal on whether Gabriel Landeskog would be out on the ice up there in Loveland. I mean, I think it would be a good idea. I know the great thing is to have him step back out on the ice again for the Colorado Avalanche. But I think from a practical standpoint, it'll be good to have him playing in a minor league game. So I'm all for it. I don't think we're going to see Gabriel Landeskog in the next week. So get him out there with the Colorado Eagles. You can make that a whole episode of the documentary. Gabriel Landeskog rides the bus and show him playing. I think because if he hadn't been out for like 3 years, I could see just the next time he steps out on the ice would be in an NHL game. I think it would be good if Gabriel Landeskog played a game in Loveland. But Jared Bednar trying to protect against any level of expectation, saying maybe if Gabriel Landeskog plays for the Colorado Eagles before he returns to the Avs. Avs in action, by the way, tomorrow night against Vegas. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. Plus, Ovi breaking the record. Which record do you say is going to stick around for, I don't want to say unbreakable. I just don't, but okay. What record, since Gretzky's goal record wasn't unbreakable, what record is unbreakable to you? That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Ryan Kaufman at Trainwreck, taking your thoughts. A lot going on this weekend, which means a lot of topics, a lot of your thoughts on these topics. Let's get back to the I find the record conversation is always fun. I always enjoy that. But I just, in the moment of watching Alexander Ovechkin break Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record, every time we say a record will never be broken, a record is broken. And it's just, I mean, people said it. People said it with Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record that no one was ever going to break it. So it opens up the possibility that any record in any sport can be broken. And I think so. I think there is. Yeah, there are ones that are going to take a whole heck of a lot to break. Jersey J tweeted in and texted in and said DiMaggio's hitting streak he doesn't think is ever going to be broken. That's the one I mentioned earlier that I think is going to stand for a very long time. But I just can't put it past any record being broken. But Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak does stand as one of the more unbreakable records, or least breakable. Maybe I'll put it that way. Least breakable record would be Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak. I think Tyler has a great point. Tyler texted in, brought up Cal Ripken's Ironman streak. If you look at the way sports are going, wouldn't it be, if you were to, let's say, bet on which notable records would never be broken, wouldn't the safest best bet be longevity and availability? I'll throw another one out there. How about Brett Favre? Brett Favre's consecutive start streak. I think if all these different records were assets, topical, given what's going on in the world today, we're talking about markets and assets and things like that. If I were to put stock in one type of record, you could have, career accumulation, like most points, most home runs, most goals. That group, that wouldn't be a very good market to invest in, given what happened yesterday. Streaks like Joe DiMaggio's would be pretty solid, but I think the best one, honestly, would be any streak of consecutive starts or consecutive games played. I think that's those are the safest group of records right now in sports, because load management, because of the prevalence of arm injuries for pitchers these days, just the physicality in these sports. I think that the best group of records to invest in would be consecutive games played, consecutive starts. Cal Ripken, Brett Favre, AC Green. Those are probably the most unbreakable records, because I think what Alexander Ovechkin has proven is, don't ever think that there's not going to be a greater athlete to come along. And again, I don't want to get into, is Alexander Ovechkin better than Wayne Gretzky? But athletes, bigger, faster, stronger. Think Ricky Henderson's stolen base record is safe? with some of the speedsters that we have in Major League Baseball, look at Aaron Judge. Look at Ohtani. Like, there are going to be phenomenal athletes to come along. We're never going to run out of these freakish athletes to go after these records. Albert says Cy Young, 749 complete games, and Gretzky's point total record. Neither will be broken. I just watched one of Wayne Gretzky's records fall. I'm not so sure the day after Wayne Gretzky had one of his biggest records broken that I'm going to say no way that Wayne Gretzky. I think his season point total, that's going to be really tough. So will his point total for his career. That's a hot take the day after Wayne Gretzky has goal record broken. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I wouldn't put that in the top 5 least breakable records, but I can't say that the day after he had his goal record broken. Cy Young, the 749 complete games. And that's like adjacent to consecutive. I mean, I know they're not consecutive, but that's kind of the thing, right? Because pitchers just don't throw complete games. And I think another, to Albert's point, if you can, the longer that the further back in history that the record is from, probably the better off you are. Right? Cy Young might as well pitched in the Mesozoic era. Like, it just, everything was so different. But I'll put this out there, and I know it wasn't the question, so I'm not. So Albert, you were playing by the rules, but let me throw a little tweak at you here for this. What if I said records that we care about? Because I'll tell you this, no one cares about Cy Young's complete games pitched. Nobody does. Nobody, and fewer people by the day care about his 511 wins. So if, and this is really, pigeonholing it a little bit, but if I said records that we care about, records that we celebrate, and I thought Mike Greenberg this morning on Get Up did a pretty good list. Like, we care that Michael Phelps won 23 gold medals. And this wasn't the way necessarily that he framed it, but I found some of these records to be kind of falling under. Like, we care about the gold medals record. We absolutely do. We care about Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak. We care about Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100 points in a game. So if I further threw guardrails on it and said records that we care about, I don't think anything Cy Young did people generally care about. Is it one of the least breakable records out there? Absolutely. But it's not one that we celebrate. It's not one when we have these kind of conversations that we normally think of. I like this one. From the 719, LeBron's flop record will last forever. Although I hate to be a stickler, but James Harden is actually the flop record holder with 500,765,365. And LeBron, I think LeBron is about 1,000 behind. So, I mean, what do we got? 4 games left in the season. He could make it. He could make it there. Another one, and how about Nolan Ryan's 7 no-hitters? I like that one. I think that's kind of like what Albert, I think it's the same idea as Albert had with Cy Young, but it's giving us a record that I think would resonate with more people. Yeah, but I still, is there a day though? Will there come a day where the way pitchers are handled goes back the other way? Do you ever foresee a time where managers, for whatever reason, and I'm not a member of Sabre, so I don't know where the new wave of Sabre metrics are. But could you imagine that someday in our lifetime that Major League Baseball will start to put more importance back in the starting pitcher? Like, could you see it correct back the other way? I mean, right now it doesn't feel that way. So you would have to have that course correction back, and then you would have to have somebody. Let me say, in Paul Skeens' career, will they go back to putting more stock in starting pitchers? Because I'll pick out a guy that I think could get after that record, could make a run at that record. I think he's in Pittsburgh right now. David asks from the 720 Pete Rose's hits record. Yeah. I'm hesitant to talk about accumulation because I just feel like with technology, like look at the torpedo bat. 2 weeks ago, we were saying this is going to be the downfall of Major League Baseball, that the Yankees have the torpedo bat. So aren't all accumulation, all hits records, all home run records? Just a couple of weeks ago, we thought they would all fall because of the torpedo bat. I think a lot of these are really good, and a lot of these are not going to fall anytime soon. But I would put my money to last the longest on anything about consecutive games or consecutive starts, and anything consecutive. I feel like, because I do think DiMaggio's, the idea that you have to be in the lineup every day to accomplish something. Home run record, it would help, but you don't have to be. So anything that requires you to be in uniform, on the field, on the court, on the ice every night, I would say that's the safest place. Good discussion. Enjoy it. Enjoy these kind of talks. Keep them coming. We still have a whole segment remaining. 719 24/7 1313. Let's take a break, come back, and have more of the show next. I think the record conversation is going to spill over into tomorrow's show. I think there's a lot here. So I'll leave it there, and I just a ton of text messages coming in, which is awesome. Thank you. The show's always better when I'm getting phone calls or text messages, and I can kind of play off what you guys are, and it helps me better calibrate what you want to talk about. Because if I get a text or a phone call that says, hey, I want to talk about the records or I want to talk about the Nuggets, then I know I'm in the right neighborhood, and let's talk more about it. And that'll allow me time to kind of sift through some of the texts that I have not yet gotten to. So come back tomorrow, and we'll talk more about record breaking, because I was discussing something with Ray during the break, and I don't want to. Here's the homework assignment, and I'm giving it to myself, but you can undertake this as well. What is the most significant NFL record? Just think about that. Stew about it while you're watching Houston and Florida. Spend some time on it. What is the most hallowed, recognizable, significant record in the National Football League? Because Ray and I got into a quick side discussion that actually I think is kind of interesting. So we'll talk about it tomorrow. In the meantime, let's talk some hoops here from the 720. Nuggets are done. Murray is a giant disappointment with the giant contract. Reminds me of Embiid. I hesitate to put anyone on the Denver Nuggets in the same vein as Joel Embiid, but I understand your frustration, and I think that it's not completely unfair to ask similar questions about Jamal Murray as people in Philadelphia are asking about Joel Embiid. And by the way, I asked these questions this summer. I brought this up. I said, can the Nuggets trust Jamal Murray to be healthy and right? And it wasn't just me pulling this out of my backside. It was both Michael Malone and Calvin Booth who challenged Jamal Murray, challenged him to do whatever was in his power, to seek outside counsel, to do whatever it took to be healthy and right for as close to an entire season as he can. And he's sitting at 65 games, and now all of a sudden he has this weird injury that's not day-to-day anymore, and he might not play in the playoffs, or at least to start the playoffs. We've been talking about this since the summer. I've had these questions about Jamal Murray. And mine has gone a little bit above and beyond. And I've added the extra layer of, I don't know that I love the idea that Jamal Murray is so awesome in the playoffs and so pedestrian during the regular season. I don't know that I love that. But certainly the availability of Jamal Murray and his health are a major concern. And now they're looking at things in Philadelphia like, is there any way, if we wanted to move on from Joel Embiid, could we? The answer for that is no, there's not. In Denver, there's a sliver of hope, but, everyone wants Michael Porter gone. Well, his contract's not great. And the idea that you're going to get a lot back for Jamal Murray, that's a pipe dream. But how important is it moving forward for the Denver Nuggets to have true flexibility on their roster to be able to make moves to sign free agents again? They may want to completely redo this thing on the fly around Nikola Jokic. We may be at that point. It's not good. It's not good what's going on with the Denver Nuggets right now. I suppose I should not end a show broadcasting from a location, airing the national championship game without talking about the national championship. I picked Florida. I picked Florida when the bracket came out. I filled it out and I put Florida. I am scared to death of the Houston Cougars. I am scared to death of the Houston Cougars. What we saw on Saturday was 100% a complete and utter choke job by Duke. There's just no other way to put it. But the credit I give Houston is that they stayed in the fight the whole time. Actually, here's Kelvin Sampson puts it even better than I can, obviously. Listen to Kelvin Sampson talk about the message to his team as they were down late against Duke on Saturday. And it sounds so simple. It sounds so obvious. Just hang in there. But you have to have true belief in order to truly hang in there against a generational basketball talent and a team with Duke across their jerseys. It is a lot easier said than done to stay in it, to stick with it. And Houston did. And that's a testament to Kelvin Sampson. It's a testament to that basketball team that is more veteran-laden than Duke was. I mean, the Cougars, this is overused, but there is a team of destiny vibe around this Houston team. I'm not going to abandon. I made it this far with the Gators. I'm not abandoning ship now, but I'm telling you, I'm scared to death that the Cougs are going to win tonight. All right, scared to death. What's on the line? My bracket. Excuse me. I'm not. Who cares about my bracket? But I'm going to stick with it, right? Because it's the one team I have left standing. So, man, Houston really showed me something. Yes, Duke collapsed, but there is enough there to give Houston credit. And they stuck with it. But this Walter Clayton fella, oh boy, he is good. And I will say, Florida's a more veteran group. Walter Clayton, obviously, a prime example of that. This dude is doing things that we haven't seen since Larry Bird in the NCAA tournament. I am scared of Houston, but some of the things that I look at with Duke and say it may have cost them, I don't know that Florida has. I think Florida is a more veteran group. I think Walter Clayton has played better than even Cooper Flagg has in this tournament. So I think there are some signs that Florida may be able to beat Houston, but man, the last few minutes of that game on Saturday was jarring with what Houston was able to do. It should be fun. I mean, that's what we want, right? I watched a women's national championship game, and that turned into an absolute laugher. UConn just blew out South Carolina. And it makes sense why Don Staley was, complaining that everyone was on the Paige Becker's storyline and it was overshadowing the accomplishment of her team. I think she was trying every trick in the book leading up to yesterday's game to try and get some sort of an edge, because I think she knew that UConn was far superior team. And how you look back in retrospect, how that team was even a 2 seed. It's crazy. But what a story. 12 national championships for Gino Auriemma. The Paige Beckers redemption. I don't know if it's redemption. She didn't screw up. She tore her ACL, but just Paige Becker sticking with it, coming back from the injury. I was shocked. I mean, I follow women's college basketball. I had no idea it had been that long since UConn won the title. And they did it in a laugher. In a laugher. They were up by 30. That's the UConn I know and love. The UConn with Rebecca Lobo, who would just drop 30 on everyone, and there wasn't anyone that could physically match up with them. But what a story UConn is. And what a drought. I mean, my thoughts and prayers to you if you're a UConn women's basketball fan. You have had to suffer. There are literally 7-year-olds that know nothing of UConn winning national titles. Little girls that know nothing of UConn winning national championships. Like the tortured life that they lead. That it's been almost a full decade since UConn had won a title. Man, you talk about a fan base that deserves it. Forget the Cubs fans, forget the Red Sox fans. How about UConn women's basketball fans? Have not seen a championship in almost a full decade. Have not seen their team look to be far superior, like they're playing a different sport than everyone else in almost 10 years. But I think this will be a good one tonight. I think it will be. I think it'll be entertaining. I was thinking about this earlier. What would be the better story? I'm always looking for that angle, and I think you want to root for the better story. I don't know if you're a Gator fan or you're a Houston fan. What would be the better story? Because if Duke makes the game, it's easy. If you're a Duke fan, it's Duke winning. If you're not a Duke fan, it's Duke losing in the most important game of the season. And you could probably apply that to UConn going for a three-peat or seeing them not make the three-peat. I think it might be Kelvin Sampson. I think it might be Kelvin Sampson. That would be the best story. Kelvin Sampson, for as long as he's been doing it, to get this Houston team, this ultimate team, right? I don't know that people still can name more than 2 guys on Houston. They just embody that collective over individual. Kelvin Sampson's been at it. The way he spoke this weekend reminds me of what Gino Auriemma said after he won the national championship. Like, there are 2 coaches, and I'm not saying Todd Golden is, selfish and he wants to win it for himself. But I got to imagine at Todd Golden's age, there's still a little bit of, hey, I want to personal accomplishment. But you have Gino Auriemma yesterday, and you had Kelvin Sampson over the weekend. Just like not care at all about themselves winning a national title. Like there was no, and that's the only what you can get if you've won 11 titles like Gino Auriemma or been coaching for as long as Kelvin Sampson, where you go, you know what? It's truly not about me. I don't benefit from this. I'm not looking for the next gig. Kelvin Sampson is not looking for another job somewhere else. Gino Auriemma certainly isn't. They have literally nothing on the line, and they just want it all for their players. And I'm not disparaging any coach that still has their own personal career goals, right? That doesn't make them selfish. I mean, Todd Golden loves his players. Todd Golden probably wants his players to win more than he wants himself, but this will be his first national championship. This would be a big deal to him. But you listen to Auriemma and Kelvin Sampson, and you almost believe for a second that they could not care less that they're adding to their own personal trophy case. So I think that's the better story. Unless Walter Clayton drops 50 tonight, that would be second. First is Kelvin Sampson winning the title after so long being a college head coach, a pro coach, and then Walter Clayton finishing off an unbelievable individual run. So we'll see what happens tonight, certainly. Still time to make it out. Get your seat in position to watch Houston and Florida on their giant stadium-sized television. Want to thank the folks here at Trainwreck for having me out, not just today, but the other 2 times I was out in lockstep with the NCAA tournament. Love coming out here. Hopefully I'll be back here sooner rather than later. My thanks to DJ Michaels back at the Extra Sports 1300 studios, Ray Dominguez babysitting me here at Trainwreck, and most of all, thank you for listening, for watching, for texting in. Always better when you're a part of the show, so I really appreciate that. Enjoy it. Our coverage of the national championship game from Westwood One is coming up at the top of the hour here on Extra Sports 1300.